Banks are suddenly closing accounts pretty much all across America. And these two states are the worst right now for bank failures and sudden closures. There's a widespread shutdown of bank branches in the United States, and if you look at the states with the highest rate of closures, it may be easier for you to prepare and get ready in case you happen to live and or bank in any of these states. Be the first to know if you will be impacted as companies like Wells Fargo and PNC shut down over 1,000 locations all across the country. So from January through July, there were 1,144 branch closures by banks nationwide. Major banks such as PNC and Wells Fargo are among the leading institutions in closing branches. And as banks continue to eliminate over 1,000 brick and mortar branches throughout the country, an increasing number of Americans continue to find themselves without essential banking services. According to data from S&P Global Market Intelligence, from the start of the year to the end of July, a sweeping total of 1,144 branches were shut down by both national and regional banks across 49 states, with certain regions experiencing more rapid withdrawals than others, i.e., bank runs. California saw the highest number of closures by sheer volume, while on a per capita basis, New Jersey experienced the most significant impact with 83 closures, followed by Washington, D.C., and then Connecticut. And the problems don't just stop there. Banks are closing up branches and switching to an entirely online, web-based, AI-operated mobile banking app business model. It's the wave of the future. All the craze. Everybody's doing it, right? But worse than that is how the list of complaints are growing from former account holders who have experienced sudden bank account closures out of the blue, even if their bank is still there and they have done nothing wrong. So let me give it to you straight. We live in a world where banks wield immense power and influence. Customers are often at the mercy of a complex and mysterious banking system, a fragile mental construct wrapped in miles and miles of red tape, fine print, rules, policies, fees, underwriting, layers and layers of privacy laws, and just plain old confusion that's designed to protect the bank and not the customer or the account holders like you and me. The banks are protected and they keep getting away with it. And the sudden closure of customer accounts has become a troubling phenomenon shrouded in secrecy and confusion. And in this video, I hope to help answer some of the most common questions that I get asked on a regular basis, and at the very least, put you all on the best path to get ready and prepared. It's the same old story with these banks. A systemic and repetitious cat and mouse game of fees, charges, ever-changing rules and policies, increased confusion, and now the rapid escalation of ACH transfer hiccups and the forced transition to a new FedNow, ISO 20022, One World Currency, and CBDC race pushed by Executive Order 14067 that affects millions of people, middle-class families, and small businesses in so many unexpected ways, leaving them feeling powerless, hopeless, and further betrayed. But let's just start by focusing on answers to one of the biggest problems that we're seeing happening at the banks right now, and that is why banks are suddenly closing down customer accounts. So the reason for these closures are as diverse as the affected customers themselves, but they all share a common theme. The banks lack transparency. Customers often receive a letter in the mail or discover their accounts are closed while in the midst of everyday activities, like when attempting to pay for a meal on their lunch break, or when they're out to dinner, or just at the checkout line doing some grocery shopping. And how embarrassing. But the explanations provided, if any, are usually vague and unhelpful. The initial concern expressed by bank representatives quickly turns into a scripted response about their right to close accounts at any time, or my personal favorite, I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do. However, this phenomenon known as exiting or de-risking or depopulation, which has grown in trending popularity in the insurance world, is driven by a complex security apparatus from regulatory bodies in Washington down to bank security managers and bank employees and bank associates. You guys remember me talking to you about this before, right? When I was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, SARS, suspicious activity reports. Yeah, that is only just the beginning. These banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, PNC, their aim is to combat fraud, terrorism, money laundering, human trafficking, and other criminal activities. So basically, pretty much any and everything that our governments do with our money and the money that they continue to mint and print before switching over to an entirely digital CBDC blockchain network. Yeah, the banks would definitely not give them an account for those very reasons. Yet they continue to get away with it. Don't get me started on that. However, for us common folk and people like me, where I'm just but a mere peasant in the whole grand scheme of things. And in these banks' process of attempting to filter out all the wrongdoing and criminal banking activity, they are not perfect in doing so. And as a result, innocent casualties will occur. Numerous unsuspecting people just like you and me, and small businesses run by the brave and courageous entrepreneurs who stick their neck out on the line and who are just trying to survive, provide quality products and services, and help to employ people in their communities and feed their families. They all end up getting caught in the crossfire, and typically without even understanding why. Because if you've ever had a banking glitch or planned outage or other problem with your checking or savings account at the bank, it's almost like they refuse to pick up and answer the phone. And if you do happen to get a hold of them, or even still able to walk into a physical branch, they'll pretend like they don't speak English anymore, or whatever language it is that you are trying to communicate to them in is now foreign, and you will have to schedule an appointment and come back in a week or two so that they can get you in front of a specialist or something. Excuse me, you just closed my account. I ain't got a week or two to wait in order to get my money. I need it now. I mean, they just don't get it. And the worst part about all of this is that this is a part of their employee training. These are regular people, just like you and me. And what they lack in heart and compassion, they may only soon realize just how cold and insensitive their actions are if or when the tables are turned. Because these banks and businesses, they don't care about anyone. So unless you are at the absolute top, like Jamie Dimon or Brian Moynihan, then good luck braving it out there with the rest of us. So I did some research, and I found that while banks don't actually disclose how frequently they close accounts in this completely up manner, federal data does provide some insights. The filing of suspicious activity reports, or SARs, by banks has surged in recent years, indicating a growing trend of account closures. And multiple SARs often lead to a customer's prompt eviction and getting the boot. And there is little to no recourse because federal laws offer even less clarity on the trigger for such cancellations, sort of like a don't ask, don't tell protocol. They just look the other way. But the consequences for those affected are profound. People struggle to pay their bills, wait weeks to receive their remaining balances, and watch their credit scores plummet when their credit cards are canceled. In addition, small businesses face difficulties making payroll, employees go without pay, layoffs and furloughs will then ensue, and unemployment begins to rise. And explaining to vendors that they no longer have a bank account, well, that pretty much goes over like a fart in church. At the end of the day, it just sucks no matter how you look at it. And what makes this situation even more frustrating is the lack of explanation and recourse. And then living in a state of constant fear of the banks screwing you over yet again begins to set in, because even though customers have moved on to another bank, they live with the uncertainty of whether a black mark exists on their financial record that might inevitably lead to a repeat episode out of the blue. And this is even worse if you're receiving deposits into your bank account from non-traditional income sources, or income that is deemed or considered to be informal. Just like when Wells Fargo began abruptly closing several of their long-standing bank accounts belonging to adult performers and others in industries that the bank decided no longer aligned with their core values, and it raised concerns about discrimination within the banking industry. These closures, which occurred without prior warning, affected individuals who had maintained accounts with the bank for extended periods of time, some for as long as 25 years. But the issue is not limited to the adult entertainment sector. It has also impacted members of the LGBTQ+ community, operating different types of meetup services and other informal economy participants. Although the banks attribute the closures to concerns about high chargeback rates associated with the adult industry, account holders argue that such issues did not apply to them, as they never had chargebacks on any of their accounts before. The situation has prompted questions about the possibility of different liberal, uber progressive, or even ultra conservative and other potential political pressures on financial institutions, and just highlights broader concerns regarding financial discrimination against legal forms of work. Now, conveniently, all these banks cannot legally disclose whether a SAR has been filed on your account, either with just cause or randomly by accident due to a human glitch or AI error. And the federal government prosecutes only a small fraction of individuals mentioned in these reports anyway. But this still continues to create lots of uncertainty and leaves people feeling like they are walking around on eggshells with a metaphorical scarlet letter on their back. They live in fear. They live in fear of another bank deciding to cut ties with them without warning, closing down all their accounts and credit cards and small business lines of credit. And then what? What are you going to do? So you see, the banks themselves, facing increasing scrutiny from regulators and examiners, they pretend to express sympathy but emphasize their obligation to follow regulatory obligations to the T. They claim that the majority of account closures are correct, but the lack of transparency and resources for customers raises questions about the accuracy and fairness of these actions. And they are definitely not 100% perfect. Therefore, by them stating that a majority of account closures are correct, inversely implies that by virtue of deductive reasoning, some are just plain old incorrect, wrong, and completely done by accident. It's like getting caught in the crossfire of a police shootout. They don't care if you get hit, and the officer will be placed on administrative leave if you happen to be wounded or killed in the line of duty. It's messed up, but it's just how this world works. And the more that we know, the better off that we will be and the greater chances we will have at survival. Or better yet, it's like landing on the chance space or community chest while playing Monopoly and having to pay a fine or a tax or go directly to jail. I mean, it sucks. It happens, but we have to keep playing the game. We can't just quit. Right? So the simple fact of the matter is that there's a huge issue of banks abruptly closing customer accounts, often without adequate explanations, and the human toll that this takes on affected individuals is enormous, crippling. Granted, some of these potential problems are caused by triggering red flags in the system, and ways to avoid getting your account frozen can include limiting suspicious patterns of cash deposits that fall just below the federal reporting thresholds, international wire transfers, unusual cash withdrawals, connections to the marijuana industry, and even criminal activity. And understanding how the lack of specificity and transparency in these closures leaves customers in confusion and distress, which only further underscores the need for increased transparency and fairness in the banking industry's account closure practices. Or, at the very least, basic improvements in transparency and effective communication skills between the banks and the account holders. I mean, we're people too, you know? So I hope that this video was informative and the value that I provided was helpful. Please hit the like button to tell YouTube that these are the types of videos that you like to see. And thank you for spending your time with me here today. New subscribers are welcome, and I look forward to reading all of your comments. Remember, knowledge is power, and I want you to have as much power as you possibly can. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this is Kevin 247.
I can tell you my problems, meditating my silence, but I keep pushing my pen, rotating my stylus. Brokenness feeling like sin, now no breath, low dollar. Used to be left on red, now all the girls go holler. Now all the girls go follow, all the fake friends gon' pop.